Maya Parker had always believed in love, the kind that endured, the kind that withstood storms. So when Liam Foster, her boyfriend of 5 years, sat across from her in their favorite cafe and said the words that shattered her world, she almost laughed, as if it were some cruel joke. "I need to leave, Maya. I need time to figure myself out." The noise of the bustling cafe dulled. The scent of roasted coffee beans and freshly baked croissants turned nauseating.
"What?"
Her voice came out hoarse, barely above a whisper. Liam ran a hand through his messy brown hair, the same way he always did when he was nervous. I feel lost. I don't know who I am outside of us." He exhaled heavily, as if his decision weighed on him, as if it was hard for him to say, but not hard enough to stay. Maya stared at him, her fingers tightening around the ceramic mug in her hands. "So, what does that mean for us?" "I don't know," he admitted. "I just know I can't be in a relationship right now." The finality of his words cut deep. 5 years. 5 years of love, of shared dreams, of late-night talks about the future. And just like that, he was walking away. No discussion. No compromise. Just him deciding, him choosing to leave. Maya swallowed past the lump in her throat. "Are you breaking up with me?" He hesitated, and for a second, she thought he might take it back, that he might realize what he was throwing away. But then he nodded. "Yes." The air left her lungs. And then, as if to twist the knife deeper, he added, "I hope you'll wait for me." Wait for him. A bitter laugh bubbled in her throat, but she swallowed it down.
Of course, he would assume that.
Assume she'd sit around pining for him while he wandered off on some self-discovery journey. Maya set her mug down with deliberate calmness. "You don't get to ask that of me, Liam." His brows furrowed. "Maya, No," she shook her head, forcing herself to stay composed. "You made your choice. You don't get to leave and still expect me to be here when you decide you're ready." Something flickered in his expression, but she didn't care to decipher it. Whatever guilt or regret he felt, it wasn't enough to change his mind. So she wouldn't let it break her. Liam reached for her hand, but she pulled away before he could touch her. "I should go," she said, pushing back her chair. "Good luck finding yourself." Then she walked out, head high, heart in pieces. And she swore she wouldn't waste another second waiting for a man who didn't choose her. 2 weeks after Liam left, Maya still felt the ache of his absence, an old wound that hadn't quite healed, a dull throb beneath her ribs. But she was determined to move on. She wasn't going to wallow. She wasn't going to wait. Which was why, when Ethan Sinclair slid into the seat across from her at the rooftop bar, she didn't push him away.
Ethan.
Liam's greatest rival. He was everything Liam wasn't: bold, confident, and maddeningly successful. While Liam spent years trying to find himself, Ethan built an empire, dominating the business world with ruthless ambition. And, unlike Liam, Ethan Sinclair never hesitated. He smirked, his dark eyes gleaming with something she couldn't quite place. "Didn't expect to see you here alone, Parker." She arched a brow. "And why is that?" "Because Liam was stupid, but I didn't think he was that stupid." The mention of Liam stung, but Maya refused to let it show. She took a sip of her drink, meeting Ethan's gaze head-on. "Well, he was—" Ethan leaned back, studying her with quiet intensity. "His loss." Maya exhaled, willing herself not to overthink the way he looked at her. "Why are you here, Ethan?" His lips curved into a slow, knowing smile. "Because I don't believe in leaving good things behind." And just like that, something shifted. Because while Liam left without looking back, Ethan was here. And he wasn't going anywhere. Maya should have known better than to engage with Ethan Sinclair. He was Liam's rival for a reason: sharp, cunning, and always 3 steps ahead. Where Liam hesitated, Ethan seized opportunities. Where Liam questioned his path, Ethan carved his own without remorse. And yet, here she was, sitting across from him, twirling the stem of her wine glass between her fingers as the city's skyline glowed behind him. She should walk away. But she didn't. Because Ethan was here. And he wasn't asking her to wait. "You look like you're thinking too hard," Ethan remarked, his voice smooth and amused. Maya smirked. Maybe I'm just deciding if you're worth the trouble. Ethan chuckled, leaning in slightly. I think you already know the answer to that. She rolled her eyes, but she couldn't ignore the pull between them. The way his gaze held hers, steady and unyielding. It was different with him. Liam had always been soft, hesitant, as if he were waiting for permission to be the man she needed. But Ethan? Ethan took what he wanted. And right now, he was looking at her like she was what he wanted. Tell me something, Parker, he said, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. What's next for you? Maya hesitated. That was the question, wasn't it? What came next? She had spent so much of her life with Liam, planning a future that no longer existed. And now, for the first time in years, she had no roadmap, no direction. Just an empty space where he used to be. I don't know, she admitted, more to herself than to him. Ethan studied her for a long moment before setting his drink down. Come work for me. Maya blinked.
What?
He leaned back against the plush seat, completely unfazed by her shock. You're sharp. You're ambitious. And if I'm being honest, you're wasted at that dead-end marketing job. Maya frowned. How do you even know where I work? Ethan smirked. I make it my business to know things. Of course he did. She shook her head. So, what? You want to give me a pity jobs? Pities? Ethan scoffed. I don't do pity. I do investments. He tilted his head. And you, Maya, are a damn good one. Her breath caught. It wasn't just the offer. It was the way he said it. Like he saw her, like he knew exactly what she was capable of even when she wasn't sure herself. And wasn't that what she had always wanted? Someone who didn't second-guess her worth? Still, working for Ethan Sinclair came with risks. He was intense, relentless. He didn't play games, he won them. And she wasn't sure she could step into his world without getting burned. I don't know, she murmured. Ethan leaned in, his voice dropping to something dangerously soft. Think about it, Parker. Because I don't make offers twice. Her pulse quickened. This was a bad idea. And yet, as she met his unwavering gaze, she already knew her answer. Maya should have said no. She should have walked away, should have refused Ethan's offer before it could complicate things further. But 2 weeks later, she found herself stepping into Sinclair Enterprises, her heels clicking against the marble floors, her heart pounding in her chest. She had taken the job. And by the look on Ethan's face when she walked into his office, he had known she would. Smart choice, he said smoothly, standing from behind his sleek mahogany desk. I'd say I'm surprised, but I'm not. Maya crossed her arms. You're awfully smug for someone who just hired a junior marketing consultant. Ethan chuckled. Oh, Parker. You really think I brought you here for junior positions? Her stomach flipped. He gestured toward the chair across from him.
Sit.
She hesitated before lowering herself into the plush leather seat. Ethan, what exactly did I just sign up for? He smirked. You signed up for a promotion. Maya's brow furrowed. What? I'm making you my director of marketing. She blinked. That's a 6-figure salary, an office down the hall from mine, and complete creative control over our next major campaign. Her mouth went dry. This wasn't just a job. It was an opportunity.
A leap.
A chance to prove herself in ways she never could at her last company. But it was also Ethan Sinclair handing her power on a silver platter. And power always came with a price. Why me? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Ethan leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. Because you're smart. Because you're talented. And because, if we're being honest, I want to see the look on Liam Foster's face when he finds out the woman he let go is thriving in my company. Maya's breath hitched. There it was. The move that wasn't just about business, but about Liam. And she should have been angry. She should have been insulted that he was using her to get under Liam's skin.
But instead?
Instead, a slow, wicked smile curled at the corners of her lips. Because maybe, just maybe, she wanted to see Liam's face when he found out too. Maya adjusted the hem of her fitted blazer, smoothing out non-existent wrinkles as she strode down the hall of Sinclair Enterprises. Every step she took echoed against the sleek marble floors, drawing the attention of passing employees, some curious, some wary.
They knew who she was.
They knew she didn't climb the ranks to this position the usual way. They also knew Ethan Sinclair didn't bring just anyone into his world. That was the part that made her stomach twist. Not the whispers, not the sideways glances, but the way Ethan had placed her in this position. As if he'd known, from the moment he made the offer, that she wouldn't be able to resist. And he was right. She reached her new office, not some cubicle or shared space, and pushed open the glass door. Inside, everything was pristine. A spacious desk, a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city, and a sitting area designed for high-stakes meetings. This wasn't a workspace. It was a statement. Her gaze flicked to the sleek black envelope waiting on her desk. A note, in Ethan's sharp, slanted handwriting.
Dinner.
8 o'clock. Don't be late. No question. No request. A command. Maya exhaled, but a thrill curled through her veins. He was pushing her, testing her, seeing if she would submit to his pace or match it. She wasn't sure which she wanted more. By the time Maya arrived at the restaurant, she was 10 minutes late. Not intentionally. Not exactly. But something in her had needed to prove that she wasn't some pawn he could summon at will. Ethan, of course, was already there, seated in a private section of the dimly lit rooftop restaurant. His dark navy suit was immaculate, his cufflinks glinting under the golden lights. He looked expensive, effortlessly powerful, and completely unsurprised by her delay. She slid into the chair across from him, meeting his gaze head-on. "You're awfully bossy for someone who's technically my boss." Ethan's lips curled into a slow smirk. "Punctuality is a sign of respect, Parker." "Or control," she countered, lifting an eyebrow. He chuckled, leaning back in his seat, fingers tapping idly against his glass. "And which do you think I want from you?" Maya tilted her head, pretending to consider it. "Both." The smirk widened. "Smart girl." The waiter arrived before she could respond, pouring them each a glass of deep red wine. She took a sip, letting the bold taste linger on her tongue before setting the glass down. "So," she said, keeping her tone casual, "is this a business dinner or something else?" Ethan exhaled a slow breath, as if amused by her attempt to draw a line between them. "A bit of both." He studied her over the rim of his glass. "We need to discuss the upcoming campaign. But I also wanted to see you outside of the office." Maya ignored the way her pulse quickened. "Why?" "Because I like watching you when you're not being careful." Heat prickled at the base of her spine. This was dangerous. She knew it. But Ethan wasn't the type to back off, and God help her, she wasn't sure she wanted him to. "So tell me, Parker," he murmured, setting his drink down. "Do you regret taking my offer yet?" Maya met his gaze, unflinching. Not even a little. His expression darkened with something unreadable. Something dangerous. Good. Maya wasn't expecting to run into Liam's so soon. She had prepared for it, had rehearsed a dozen cool, indifferent responses in her head. But none of that mattered when she turned the corner at the coffee shop near her apartment and saw him standing there, looking as though no time had passed at all. "Maya?" Her breath hitched, but she masked it quickly. "Liam." His face lit up with something she couldn't quite place, relief, maybe. As if he had genuinely expected her to be waiting for him. As if nothing had changed. "You look amazing," he said, taking a step closer.
She did.
She knew that. She had been taking care of herself, thriving, winning. And yet, hearing it from him didn't stir the same warmth it once did. Liam hesitated, his fingers twitching at his sides. "I was hoping we could talk." Maya arched a brow.
"Talk."
I know I left things badly. I needed time, and he exhaled sharply. "I miss you, Maya." There it was. The words he had never said before. The words she had ached to hear back then.
But now?
Now, they didn't feel like salvation. They felt like a joke. Her lips curled into a slow, knowing smile. "You miss me?" Liam nodded quickly, eyes searching hers.
"Yes."
"And I was hoping—" "Funny," she interrupted smoothly, tilting her head. "Ethan Sinclair told me the same thing just last night." Liam froze. His expression shifted, confusion, then disbelief, then something that almost looked like rage. "Ethan," he repeated, voice tight. Maya took a step closer, just enough to see the flicker of jealousy in his eyes. That's right, she murmured. The man you hate. The man who didn't walk away from me. Liam's jaw clenched. Maya, tell me you're joking? She smiled.
Slow.
Deliberate. Victorious. Why would I joke? And just like that, the balance shifted. Because for the first time, Liam Foster realized what he had lost. And Maya Parker? She realized just how much she loved watching him regret it. Liam stood there, stunned. His mouth opened, then closed, like he couldn't quite believe what he'd just heard. Maya let him sit in that disbelief. Let him feel the weight of it, the sharp edge of reality cutting into whatever fantasy he'd been clinging to. You're with Ethan? He finally managed, his voice tight. Maya took a slow sip of her coffee, savoring the moment. I wouldn't say with him. She tilted her head, watching the flicker of something dark flash in Liam's eyes. But he is the one who was there when you weren't. Liam exhaled sharply, raking a hand through his hair. Maya, this is insane. You know what kind of man he is. Oh. She arched a brow. You mean successful? Powerful? A man who doesn't run when things get hard. Liam flinched.
Good.
Because he had no right to act like this, no right to be angry. He had been the one to walk away. And yet, here he was, looking at her like she was the one who had betrayed him. You don't understand, he muttered. Ethan doesn't just want you. He wants to win. Maya laughed, low and amused. Win what, Liam? Because if you're talking about me, you lost that the second you left. The words hit their mark. She saw it in the way his jaw clenched, in the way his hands curled into fists at his sides. And she didn't feel an ounce of sympathy. Because this was what he had expected, to come back and find her waiting, untouched, unchanged. But Maya Parker wasn't the same woman he had left behind. And he was just now realizing it. She leaned in slightly, just enough to lower her voice into something soft and lethal. Did you really think I'd wait for you? Liam exhaled shakily, looking down. I hoped. Maya smiled. Full.
Cold.
Unforgiving. Then you're a bigger fool than I thought. And with that, she walked away. She didn't look back. The moment Maya stepped into Ethan's office later that evening, she knew he had already heard about the confrontation. Of course he had. Ethan Sinclair didn't just hear things. He anticipated them.
And right now?
Right now, he was looking at her like he had been waiting for this moment. He leaned back in his chair, watching her with dark amusement. You saw him. Maya dropped her bag onto the chair across from his desk, exhaling. Yes. And she met his gaze, unflinching. And he looked like a man who just realized he made the biggest mistake of his life. Ethan's lips curved. Good. Maya arched a brow. You wanted him to know? Ethan didn't deny it. I wanted him to watch. Her pulse quickened. There was something intoxicating about the way he spoke, about the way he didn't just exist in a space, he controlled it. And her? She was getting dangerously close to letting him control her. Maya took a slow, measured step forward. And what if I told you I enjoyed watching him squirm? Ethan's smirk deepened. Then I'd say you're finally playing the game the way it's meant to be played. A shiver ran down her spine. Not fear. Not uncertainty. Excitement. Because that was the thing about Ethan Sinclair. He didn't ask for things. He took them. And right now he was looking at her like she was next. Maya exhaled, keeping her voice steady. And what exactly is this game, Ethan? He stood, moving toward her with slow, deliberate steps. You already know, Parker. She held her ground as he stopped just inches away. Close enough to feel the heat radiating off him, close enough to catch the scent of his cologne. Dark, rich, dangerous. And what if I don't want to play? She murmured, even though they both knew that wasn't true. Ethan leaned in slightly, his voice a whisper against her ear. Then why are you still here? Maya's breath hitched. She could leave.
She should leave. But instead, she stayed.
2 days later, Maya got the text she hadn't been expecting. Liam, we need to talk. Meet me tonight. She stared at the message for a long moment, debating. She should ignore it. She shouldn't give him another second of her time. But then again, Maybe she wanted to watch him break a little more. When she arrived at the rooftop bar, Liam was already there, pacing. He looked tense, like a man barely keeping himself together.
Good.
She slid into the seat across from him, tilting her head.
Well,
Liam sat down, exhaling sharply. Maya, I need you to listen to me. She folded her arms. I'm listening. He hesitated, running a hand through his hair. I made a mistake. A huge one. I thought I needed time, but what I really needed was you. Maya didn't blink,
didn't react.
She just waited. I love you, Liam continued desperately. I always have. And for a split second, just a flicker of a moment, Maya felt something. Not love. Not longing.
Pity.
Because she had wanted these words once. Had ached for them.
But now?
Now, they didn't feel like a victory. They felt like too little, too late. Maya exhaled slowly, leaning forward. You love me? Liam nodded quickly, hopeful.
Yes.
And if you, then why was I never enough for you to stay? Silence. His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. Maya. No, she interrupted, her voice cool. You don't get to say this now. Not when I've already moved on. Liam's expression darkened. With him. Maya smiled. Cold. Final.
Yes.
And just like that, she watched Liam shatter. But the best part? She didn't feel a thing. Maya watched Liam unravel in real time. The tight clench of his jaw. The way his fingers dug into his glass, like he was seconds from crushing it. The sheer helplessness in his eyes. Something she had never seen before. Once upon a time, she would have ached for him in this moment. She would have leaned in, reassured him, told him it was okay, that they could fix this.
But now?
Now she just took a slow sip of her drink, letting the silence stretch. Letting him sit in the mess he made. You don't mean that, Liam finally said, his voice raw. Desperate. You're just trying to hurt me? Maya smiled. And his nostrils flared. Maya, he's using you. She hummed, tilting her head. If that helps you sleep at night, sure. Liam exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. I know you. You don't just move on like this. Maya leaned forward, her expression sharp. Dangerous. You don't know me at all, Liam. His breath hitched. And for the first time, she saw it. The realization crashing over him, settling into his bones like poison. The girl he left behind? The one who would have waited for him? She didn't exist anymore. The moment Maya stepped into Ethan's penthouse later that night, she knew he had been waiting for her. And not just for her to show up. For this exact moment. He was standing by the bar, pouring himself a glass of whiskey, his suit jacket discarded, his sleeves rolled up. Casual. Controlled. Like he already knew how this night would end. Maya shut the door behind her, crossing her arms. You knew he would reach out to me? Ethan smirked, swirling his drink. Of course. You wanted him to. He finally turned, dark eyes locking onto hers. I wanted you to see exactly how weak he is. Maya's breath hitched. Because he was right. She had seen it, the hesitation, the insecurity in Liam's eyes. The regret. The sheer lack of control. And compared to Ethan? Liam suddenly seemed so small. You're playing a dangerous game, she murmured. Ethan took a slow sip of his drink, his gaze never leaving hers. Good thing I never lose. Maya exhaled sharply, shaking her head. You're insufferable. Ethan chuckled, setting his glass down. And yet here you are. She was here. And she should leave. She should. But when Ethan stepped closer, closing the space between them, she didn't move. Didn't push him away. Because this was the first time in a long, long time that she felt like she was playing on equal ground. And God help her, she loved it. 2 days later, Maya received a text that nearly made her laugh out loud. Liam, I need to see you.
Please.
Pathetic.
She didn't respond. She didn't need to.
Because Liam had made his choice.
And now?
Now she was making hers. That night, she arrived at Ethan's penthouse unannounced. No warning. No pretense. And when he opened the door, smirking like he had expected her, she simply stepped inside, and shut the door behind her. No hesitation,
No second-guessing.
because Liam had thought she would wait.
But she?
She had moved on. And this time, she wasn't looking back. No more waiting. Ethan didn't ask questions when Maya walked into his penthouse. He didn't need to. The way she carried herself, the deliberate confidence, the slow, measured steps, told him everything. She wasn't here for hesitation. She wasn't here to be careful. She was here because she had made her choice. Ethan leaned against the bar, watching her with quiet amusement. To what do I owe the pleasures? Maya arched a brow, tossing her bag onto the nearby chair. You already know. His lips curved. Good girl. She was learning. For so long, Maya Parker had been the woman who waited, for Liam to grow up, for love to be enough, for someone to finally choose her the way she deserved.
But tonight?
Tonight, she was the one doing the choosing. Ethan studied her, taking his time. So, Parker, you're done playing games. Maya smirked, stepping closer.
No.
I'm just done playing his. Ethan exhaled a slow, satisfied breath. About time. Liam learns the truth, the hard way. Liam Foster wasn't used to losing. He had always assumed that no matter where life took him, Maya would always be there, waiting, loving his. So when she ignored his texts, his calls, his desperate attempts to fix things, a deep, gnawing panic settled in his chest. And when he finally saw her again, really saw her, it was in the last place he expected. At Ethan Sinclair's side. Maya looked untouchable. Head held high, confidence in every step, standing next to the one man Liam hated most. And Ethan? Ethan had the audacity to smirk. Liam, he greeted smoothly, sliding an arm around Maya's waist. You're looking a little lost. Liam's throat tightened. He turned to Maya, searching for something, hesitation, regret, anything that told him this was a mistake. But all he saw was cold, quiet certainty. Maya, he said hoarsely, we need to talk. She tilted her head.
No, Liam. We don't.
And just like that, he knew. Knew that this wasn't a phase, wasn't a game. Maya Parker was gone. And she wasn't coming back. That night, Ethan poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handing one to Maya as they stood by the massive window of his penthouse, overlooking the city. To what are we toasting? She asked, smirking as she took the glass. Ethan's eyes gleamed. To your first real power move, Maya hummed, swirling the amber liquid in her glass. You think that was my first? Ethan chuckled. Fair point. But it was your most satisfying. She took a slow sip, the burns settling warm in her chest. Because he was right. For the first time in her life, she wasn't waiting for love, for someone else's decisions, for permission to be. She was taking what she wanted. And she had never felt more alive. Ethan studied her for a long moment, his voice dropping to something dangerously soft. So tell me, Parker, what do you want next? Maya turned to him, meeting his gaze head-on. And she smiled. Everything. Liam Foster was unraveling. He had spent weeks trying to convince himself that this wasn't real. That Maya was angry, that she was acting out, that this thing with Ethan was nothing more than a reckless rebound. But deep down, he knew. Maya Parker was gone. And Ethan Sinclair had won. But Liam wasn't the type to surrender easily. Which was why, 2 nights later, he found himself standing outside Maya's apartment, fists clenched, his heartbeat hammering in his ears. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again, harder. This time, the door swung open and Liam's stomach dropped. Because standing there, smirking like the devil himself, was Ethan Sinclair. Casual. Relaxed. Shirt unbuttoned just enough to make Liam's vision blur with rage. Foster. Ethan's voice was smooth, amused. Didn't expect to see you here? Liam's blood ran cold. Where's Maya? Ethan tilted his head. Where do you think she is? And then, like he knew it would shatter him, Ethan stepped aside just enough for Liam to see her.
Maya.
Standing in the hallway, wearing his shirt, hair still slightly tousled, looking at Liam like he was nothing more than a bad memory. Liam's breath caught. His stomach twisted. Maya, She crossed her arms, unbothered. What do you want, Liam? He swallowed hard. We need to talk. Ethan chuckled, slow and dangerous. See, that's the problem, Foster. You think you're still entitled to her time. Liam's fists clenched. Stay out of this, Sinclair. Maya exhaled, shaking her head.
No, Liam.
You stay out of this. Liam turned to her, desperation creeping into his voice. Maya, please. You don't get to please me, she cut in coldly. Not after you left. Liam's mouth opened, but no words came out.
Because what could he say?
She was right. And the worst part? Maya wasn't even angry anymore. She was just done. Go home, Liam, she murmured. There's nothing left for you here. Liam's throat tightened. And then, because Ethan Sinclair had never once let an opportunity not twist the knife deeper, he leaned in, voice dropping to a slow, satisfied murmur. She's mine now, Foster. Liam broke. He didn't say another word, didn't fight, didn't argue, because there was nothing left to say, nothing left to fight for. He had already lost. Maya exhaled slowly as the door shut, locking Liam out, locking the past out. For a long moment, she just stood there, the weight of finality settling over her. And then she felt it, Ethan's presence at her back. Not pushing, not demanding, just there. And that was what made all the difference. She turned slowly, meeting his gaze. You enjoyed that way too much. Ethan smirked. Obviously. Maya huffed, shaking her head. You're insufferable. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. And yet, here you are. Her breath hitched. Because he wasn't wrong. Ethan Sinclair was trouble. A storm she should probably never have stepped into. But the thing about storms? They were thrilling. She lifted her chin, meeting his gaze with quiet defiance. And what now, Sinclair? Ethan's lips curled, eyes gleaming. Now, Parker's? His fingers skimmed along her wrist, slow and deliberate. Now, we stop pretending you don't love this. Maya exhaled sharply. Because the terrifying part?
He was right.
Ethan Sinclair had always known how this would end. Liam Foster had never stood a chance. But watching him crumble in real time, watching the moment his last pathetic hope died in Maya's eyes, that had been a special kind of satisfaction. And now, Ethan turned his full attention to the woman who had just shattered a man without lifting a single finger. Maya Parker. The woman who had once waited. The woman who had once belonged to someone else. But not anymore. Now she was standing in his penthouse, looking at him like she was finally ready to stop fighting this. And Ethan Sinclair never let an opportunity go to waste. Maya should have felt something after that final confrontation with Liam. But she didn't. No guilt. No sadness. No lingering nostalgia for what they once had. Because all she could feel now was the steady, unshakable realization. She had won. And Ethan? Ethan had been right there beside her the entire time. Her breath hitched as he stepped closer, slow and deliberate. Still thinking about him? Ethan murmured. Maya met his gaze, steady. No. Ethan's lips curved. Good. And then, without hesitation, without pretense, he reached for her. Maya didn't resist. Didn't hesitate. Because this was what she had been running from. Not Liam. Not heartbreak. But this. The way Ethan Sinclair looked at her like she was something he wanted to own. And the way she, God help her, wanted to let him. Liam didn't show up again. Not at her apartment. Not at Sinclair Enterprises. Because he knew. Maya had made her choice. And it wasn't just about Ethan. It was about her. About the woman she had become. The one who didn't wait anymore. But that didn't mean Liam didn't watch. Because 2 weeks later, his worst nightmare came true. Maya Parker, standing beside Ethan Sinclair, at a high-profile gala, draped in a sleek, black gown, her hand resting lightly in the crook of Ethan's arm. Not just some woman on his arm. Not just another conquest. But his equal. And the moment Liam saw the way Ethan looked at her, possessive, proud, utterly satisfied, he knew. He had never deserved her. And Ethan Sinclair? Ethan had won her. The night of the gala was a test, a statement. And Maya knew at the moment she stepped out of the car and into the flashing lights. People stared, whispered, because they all knew who she had been. Liam Foster's longtime girlfriend, the woman who had once been left behind.
But now?
Now she was Maya Parker, director of marketing for Sinclair Enterprises. And more importantly, she was the woman standing at Ethan Sinclair's side. She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice just enough for Ethan to hear. "You love making a scene, don't you?" Ethan chuckled, dark and amused. "Of course." She smirked. "And what happens when the world realizes I'm not just some pawn in your game?" Ethan turned to her then, gaze sharp, intense. And when he spoke, his voice was low, final.
"Maya?"
He reached for her, fingers grazing the bare skin of her back, slow and deliberate. "You were never a pawn." His lips brushed against her ear, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "You're my queen." And just like that, Maya Parker knew. She hadn't just won. She had conquered. Maya had spent years being the good girl. Patient. Loyal. The kind of woman who stood by a man, even when he wavered. But that version of her? She had buried her.
And now?
Now she was standing at Ethan Sinclair's side, untouchable. The world had noticed. The whispers had grown. Not just about her rise to power at Sinclair Enterprises. Not just about the way she had walked away from Liam Foster without looking back. But about her and Ethan. Because this wasn't a fling. This wasn't some carefully orchestrated revenge. This was a power move. And it was permanent. Liam should have let it go. He should have accepted that he had lost. That Maya wasn't his anymore. But Liam Foster had never learned how to accept defeat. Which was why, 3 weeks after the gala, he showed up at Sinclair Enterprises, demanding to see her. Security didn't let him pass the lobby. But that didn't matter, because Maya came down to meet him. Not because she owed him anything, but because she wanted to see just how far he had fallen. The moment he saw her, his breath hitched. Because she looked different. Not just confident. Not just powerful.
But completely out of his reach. "Maya?"
His voice cracked. She folded her arms, gaze cold. "What do you want, Liam?" He exhaled shakily. "You're making a mistake." Maya let out a slow, amused breath. "Am I?" Liam's jaw clenched. "You think Ethan cares about you? You think he sees you as anything more than a way to what?" She cut in, voice sharp. "To win." Liam swallowed hard.
"Yes."
Maya smiled then. Cruel. Knowing. "And what if I told you that I like winning too?" Liam flinched. Because this was the part he had never understood. Maya Parker had never been weak. She had only ever been held back.
And now?
Now she was free. She took a slow step forward, voice dropping. "You don't get to rewrite history, Liam. You walked away.
You left me.
And now..." She smirked. "Now you get to watch me rise." Liam opened his mouth, maybe to argue, maybe to beg, but she didn't care. She turned on her heel, walking away. And this time, he was the one left waiting. Ethan had watched the confrontation from his office. Because of course he had. He had anticipated it. And now, as Maya walked back into his office, head high, victorious, he couldn't help but smirk. "Well?" he asked, voice dripping with amusement. "Did you enjoy watching him break?" Maya exhaled, rolling her shoulders. "A little more than I should have." Ethan chuckled. "Good." She shook her head, taking a slow step closer. "You're terrible, Sinclair." He leaned back in his chair, watching her with quiet amusement. "And yet, here you are." She bit her lip, eyes gleaming. Because he wasn't wrong. This thing between them, it was dangerous. But so was power. And Maya Parker had finally learned that she wasn't meant to be controlled. She was meant to rule. Ethan's gaze darkened, something sharp and knowing flickering in his eyes. "You ready for your next move, Parker?" She smirked, stepping closer. "Always." Liam Foster was drowning. Losing Maya had been the first blow. Watching her walk into Ethan Sinclair's world had been the second. But this was the killing strike. Because tonight, Maya Parker wasn't just standing at Ethan's side. She was taking his name. The press release hit the news before Liam could even process it. Ethan Sinclair and Maya Parker, the business power couple taking over the industry. Liam stared at the headline, numb. The accompanying photo made his stomach twist. Maya, radiant, smirking, wrapped in Ethan's very expensive suit jacket as they left a private event together. Like she had never belonged to anyone else. Like Liam Foster had never even existed. And the worst part? This wasn't just a relationship. This was a takeover. Maya wasn't just with Ethan. She was becoming him. Maya scrolled through the headlines as she sipped her morning coffee, completely unbothered. Ethan was standing near the window of their penthouse, reading his own copy of the carnage they had unleashed. You realize you've officially destroyed him, right? Ethan mused, not even trying to hide his amusement. Maya hummed, setting down her cup. He destroyed himself. Ethan chuckled. Fair enough. But he knew what this meant. This wasn't just about Liam anymore. Maya Parker was done playing small. She wasn't just a woman who had moved on. She was a woman who had leveled up.
And Liam?
Liam Foster was nothing but collateral damage. Liam's world collapsed in the weeks that followed. He lost clients. Deals fell through. His once untouchable reputation crumbled. Because Ethan? Ethan never let his enemies recover. And Maya? Maya didn't even spare him a glance. The final blow came in the form of an invitation. A sleek, black envelope, addressed to Liam Foster, delivered by hand. Inside, written in Ethan's signature, mocking handwriting. Sinclair and Parker. You are cordially invited to an evening celebrating the future of power and success. The future. As in, a future that no longer included him. Liam crushed the invitation in his fist, but it didn't change the truth. Maya Parker had stopped waiting. And Ethan Sinclair had made sure she never had to wait for anything ever again. The night of the gala was a victory lap. Maya stood at the top of the grand staircase, a vision in an emerald silk gown, champagne in hand. Ethan was at her side, dark and commanding, hand resting possessively at her waist. The room belonged to them. And when she finally met Liam's gaze across the crowd, she didn't feel a single thing. Liam, on the other hand, he looked broken, ruined, irrelevant. Maya lifted her champagne flute in a silent toast, watching as realization crushed him from across the room. And then she turned to Ethan and smirked. I win. Ethan exhaled slowly, dark amusement flickering in his eyes. No, Parker. He leaned in, voice dropping to something possessive, something final. We win. Maya smiled. Because that was the difference between Ethan Sinclair and Liam Foster. Liam had waited for love to be enough. Ethan had made damn sure it never had to be a question. And that was why he always won.
Liam Foster used to believe in second chances. He used to believe that some mistakes could be undone. But watching Maya Sinclair, standing at the top of the world, it finally sank in. Some losses are permanent. He sat at the dimly lit bar, drink untouched, staring at the television screen above. Business power couple Ethan and Maya Sinclair announced major expansion. Sinclair Enterprises now an unstoppable empire. The footage rolled. Maya stepping out of a sleek black car, power and elegance radiating from her every move. Ethan's hand rested lightly on her waist as he guided her into the gala, his smirk one of absolute possession. They looked like royalty. And Liam? He looked like a man no one remembered.